Thank you very much. It is time now to present the award for the outstanding lawyers in the field of human rights activism, and somewhat fortuitously, given that time is moving rather faster than we expected, the gentleman preparing to present this award needs no introduction at all. Ladies and gentlemen, Bill Browder.
In the last 2 years before this, when we had the Magnitsky Awards, I actually never presented an award because there were so many good people to present the awards and so many good recipients. But this particular award, I didn't want to leave to anybody else because I feel so strongly about it, and I feel so strongly about the recipients. And this award started from an email that I got. I published my book, Red Notice, in 2015, and I set up an email account so people could write to me, and I got various people wrote to me writing nice notes, and a few people wrote to me with mean notes. And every once in a while, someone would come to me with a story, and I received a note from a woman, a Russian woman in Guatemala, named Irina Bitkov. And Irina Bitkov wrote to me a story that was so shocking that I couldn't help but pay attention. She and her husband and their daughter lived in St. Petersburg. They owned a pulp and paper mill in St. Petersburg. And one day the Russian FSB came to them and said, "We want you to hand over your pulp and paper mill." And they refused. And their daughter, who was 16 at the time, was subsequently kidnapped, raped for 3 days, and then returned to the family completely destroyed. They came back, the FSB, to the family and said, "Okay, now hand over your pulp and paper mill." And eventually the FSB got their pulp and paper mill and threatened the family with death. And they fled, first to Latvia, then to Turkey. And then they discovered that Guatemala didn't have an extradition treaty with Russia, and there was a law firm in Guatemala offering to emigrate there. And so they paid this law firm some money, emigrated to Guatemala, got their papers, and settled into a quiet life in Guatemala. The father became a math teacher, the mother became a drawing teacher, and their daughter, who was severely psychologically traumatized, started to slowly recover. In Guatemala, they had another child, a little boy named Igor, and their life pretty much seemed perfect, or as perfect as it can be in exile. And then 5 years later, the Russians tracked them down. And they got an international organization that was supposed to be fighting impunity in Guatemala to arrest the family, put them in prison, and they sentenced the father to 19 years in prison for passport violations, and the mother and daughter to 14 years. And then they put the 3-year-old child into a Guatemalan orphanage. And they had, the Bitkovs were lucky enough to have 2 lawyers. One of them, Victoria Sandoval, was their neighbor in their area. And the other, Rolando Alvarado, was their media lawyer. And these 2 lawyers, who weren't experts in criminal law, that weren't experts in human rights, took on their case. And not only took on their case, Rolando took their son, Igor, their 3-year-old son, into his own family to take care of him while they were in jail. They took on their case fighting the most evil, I would say, corrupt group of government officials. They were threatened, they are threatened, and they slowly fought for the justice for this family. And I joined their fight for this justice, and I'm proud to say that through their incredible hard work, giving up almost everything, traveling the world, testifying in Washington, not being paid, looking after their child, the family was let out of jail a few months ago. And I've seen lawyers and I've seen lawyers, and I've never seen the kind of commitment and the kind of sacrifice that these two lawyers have made for this family, and it touches me dearly, and I want them to be recognized and honored. And please come up so you can have your award.
Thank you very much. For me, it's an incredible honor. Your words, Bill, are so touching. It's an honor to be present, to have been invited to this important ceremony. And I would like to share with you a few words of what we have, the experience that I have had with the Bitkovs. I met the Bitkovs because, well, in fact, yes, we were neighbors, and also because we have kids the same age. So Irina and I took our babies to the same kindergarten, and that's how we started a friendship. One morning on January 2015, their house was being raided for about 100 officials from CICIG and FESI, which is like the prosecutors of high-risk cases. And after almost 24 hours of raid, they have not eaten, they have not slept in all that time. They were arrested, and they were driven to the courthouse, where they were locked in cages in the basement of the courthouse, at the view of every person that entered the courthouse. They were humiliated, they were stripped of all hope and dignity. They were tortured. They were locked alongside rapists, killers, murderers, gang members. And because of the inhuman treatment that Anastasia had suffered before, as Bill Browder said, and the inhuman treatment, the torture that she had suffered during the raid under arrest, she suffered a terrible breakdown. And Irina had no other option but lay her down at the dirty floor of the basement of the courthouse with no medical treatment whatsoever for more than 5 days. Their son, Vladimir, he was 3 years old at the time. He was taken from them. And I cannot imagine the terrible pain it meant for him and for his parents. The Bitkovs were alone in Guatemala. They have no family resources over there. And they were surrendered by opportunistic lawyers that only saw them as easy prey, because they thought that they were going to be soon deported to Russia. Thankfully, it didn't happen. The press exposed the case as picturing them as the leaders of a smuggler's structure that was very dangerous, and that had the effect that many of the people, neighbors, friends, left them alone, thinking they were terrible people like the Russian mafia or something. This case has led me to know how far can human evilness and the ambition that feeds it can go. It is almost impossible not to feel powerless, facing the power of all this vileness and how it goes over the law. But it is also impossible not to fight for justice, for this family, to see them free again. This award, which I am very honored to receive today, is a great incentive to continue this fight. And I appreciate the support we have received from Bill Browder, from Ivan Cherkasov, from John Love, with whom we have spent hour and hour trying to find a solution for all this. Thank you very much.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Vladimir Bitkov was only 3 years old when he came to my home in January 2015. At such a young age, and with every member of his family in prison, he said to me, "I am worried." On February 2015, I took him to the prison where his father was being held so they could see each other. They were having breakfast together when Vladimir stopped eating, looked into his father's eyes, and again said, "I am worried." 2 days after that, a judge took him away of my custody and sent him to an orphanage outside the city. This judge also forbade having any contact with him. His family was in great suffering during this time, and I can't even imagine what Vladimir felt being separated from everyone he knew. When he was released after 42 days in the orphanage, he was sick and visibly hurt. One night, Vladimir told me, "Rolando, a red wolf comes to my bed every night and tries to take me away, but an angel comes and rescues me." Everything that has happened to the Bitkov family has been a human tragedy. And it didn't take me long to realize that our struggle was not only Guatemala's corrupt justice system, but also against the biggest criminal organization in the world. If you asked me at that time if I was scared, I would say I was terrified, concerned, and even hopeless. But the angel from Vladimir's dreams did come to help us in the end. This angel was sent by God, and he is called Bill Browder. Bill Browder, with help from his amazing team, Ivan Cherkasov and John Lowe, among others, worked very hard on this case and was willing to fight for justice no matter what. That gave me hope, and today it is a great privilege to be here and receive this award in honor of Sergei Magnitsky, whose fight for the rule of law persists and has spread globally. on behalf of my country, my family, the members of the Bitkov family, I am thankful to every person in the world who fights in defense of the human rights. Thank you very much.